As we check in now at the edge of the trading floor with Walsh Trading is Scott Gecas here with us. Scott, what's the mood and what's the volume like in the grain market today?
Well, the volume is pretty much a little bit light. The mood is everyone's just watching the headlines. We had crazy overnight moves. We had everything from being higher to lower to, I mean, it's all over the place. The Trump effect is in full effect right now. You know, he came out last night and said that he wished he would have raised tariffs a little bit quicker. You know, that drove the market one way. Then within the next few hours, he came out and said they're going to be back at the table. So that's the reason why you're seeing a lot of volatility. Volatility in the option market is elevated, and it's completely warranted with these type of levels. With all this whipsaw back and forth, everyone is just completely glued to the headlines.
Well, you mentioned that word whipsaw. That's been used a lot today. So this corn market, is there anything fundamental that is moving this back and forth between higher and lower, or is it all just emotion and fun money driven?
Yeah, I mean, it clearly states that it's emotionally driven. Based on the headlines, the funds are starting to add a little bit more contracts to the short end. They did go from net long to net short, so that's definitely a significant position tone. So we're just going to keep an eye on that 363 level. That's going to be very important.
Yep, we've been talking a lot about that. What has that done for the options market then?
Well, the option market in general is elevated. You're going to pay a lot more money for options for protection or speculation, whichever way you want to go, just due to all the headline risk. So that's what I mean by the volatility is elevated with good reason to be elevated. And that's the reason why you're seeing all these dramatic moves just based off that headlines.
Where does this leave wheat, do you think, Scott?
Well, wheat is a little bit of a different dynamic. So we had positive trade war talks with Japan, which was a little bit surprising, adding a little bit support to it. The stronger dollar, as well as the Chinese trade talks, are a little bit of pressuring. So you're having two-sided action in the wheat market in particular. All
right. We'll be back in just a moment. Stay with us. We've got more coming up right here on the Market Day Report. Scott Gecas at Walsh Trading in Chicago here with us. What do you think of this hog complex today? A wild move from last Friday.
Yeah, and that's why we're in an expanded limit. So we had limit down on Friday. Limits are expanded today. You're seeing a big bump up in price. And that's just purely done to speculation that the trade war talks are going back to the table. You know, there's a lot of major concerns with traders on the floor that all China has to do is cancel one of the sales or the exports that are already on the books. If they cancel one of those, you're going to see a big drop in price. So I think this is a little bit overdone. It's very emotionally driven with the hopes that the exports are going to show up. If they don't show up, or if China cancels, you're going to see a big drop in price, a big pullback, spike in volume, and spike in volatility.
Scott, what am I reading between the lines here? Are you saying that there could be more volatility ahead?
I definitely think. I think that's an understatement. I think the volatility is here to stay at least until all this trade war stuff gets done. As you've seen, you know, tweets here, tweets there. You know, the Trump effect is definitely there, moving markets back and forth, not just in the grains and the protein complex, but just markets globally, worldwide.
Where does that leave cattle then in all of this picture? Because cattle prices are better. The cattle futures are back to the higher side here today.
Yeah, well, the cattle futures, there's a lot of different moving parts in this story here as well. So with the Kansas plant being shut down, we're waiting for the other packers to pick up that slack. It looks like they have been able to pick up that slack. I think it might be a little bit of a buying opportunity, but all we need is one of those numbers to fall off, and then we're right back at that same level as well.
It was interesting. I was home. I only live about 10 miles from that plant. I was home over the weekend. There's a lot of activity there on the weekend. The town was very, very busy, and there's signs up all over town in support of rebuilding that plant, and it is taking place. So what about the outside markets? Are they any influence on this protein complex at all at this point?
Well, I think right now it's really not that big of an influence. When you're looking at correlations, especially with the beef, they try to make correlations to the stock market or the economy. You know, with the economy running full steam ahead, the protein complex, the beef complex should ramp up a little bit in price. Now, everybody out there, every analyst is saying the sky is falling, so everybody's a little hesitant. So we have to wait and see how these numbers come out.
Okay, Scott. Hope you have a good afternoon. Scott Gecas there at the edge of the trading floor.